bad things must come to an end, and if you asked all the people in this photo, it was a very, very bad thing. Pam Bondi as Attorney General. I know so many of the people in this photo. One of the people who got an Epstein binder in this infamous moment at the White House is my executive producer, ALX. And inside of this binder was the already public Jeffrey Epstein flight logs that had been redacted as, like, I don't know, some type of new insult to the people who were there at the White House, defenders of the president, people who like MAGA, people that helped the president win the White House. Why would you insult them like this and hand them already publicly available information, trot them out in front of all of the media in the world? Normally, there's not photographers just standing right outside of the White House. This seemed to be done on purpose or with like malicious intent or out of absolute incompetence. I'm not sure which, but at some point it doesn't really matter because the cake is baked. And thus started the saga of punching ourselves directly in the nuts over Epstein time and time and time again in this administration. It's been very, very frustrating, I know, for the president, for many of the people involved, because I know a lot of the people involved. And so this is just sort of like an iconic photo of like a misread and a misunderstanding of the current moment in American politics. And it may well cost Pam Bondi her job. Here we go, the top article in the world right now. Pam Bondi begged Trump not to fire her during dramatic White House showdown as insider reveals the final straw. So Pam Bondi allegedly is being fired. Here is the core article that, again, alleges this, written by Shelby Talcott, who is a boutique reporter for Semaphore. Again, a little boutique outlet, but not as bad as most fake news outlets, I guess, if I'm trying to be courteous here. They could still get it wrong, but here we go. The president has informed Pam Bondi that her time is nearing an end as Attorney General. Multiple sources tell me. Formal announcement hasn't come yet. The normal caveats shouldn't that he could change his mind apply. He's been speaking with advisors, a possible replacement. Pam Bondi is aware of that as well. So here we go. Trump has told Bondi her time is over. So imminently, Pam Bondi will be replaced as Attorney General. Trump has not made a formal announcement about Bondi's replacement, but typical sources say that Trump can also change his mind. Bondi's anticipated departure follows a tumultuous 14 months at the helm of the Justice Department. The Jeffrey Epstein investigation becoming a constant thorn in her side. Recent weeks' long simmering frustration among Republicans over the chaotic release of the files resulted in bipartisan congressional subpoena. Trump lost confidence in her leadership. Attorney General Pam Bondi is a wonderful person. She's doing a wonderful job, Trump said in a statement to Semaphore on Thursday morning. Okay. So Trump's talked to people about the best person to replace Bondi. Apparently Lee Zeldin is high on the list. It's a little strange, I'm not sure. I have nothing against Lee Zeldin, but like, it's a peculiar pick. Ladies and gentlemen, let's find out about Pam Bondi begging Donald Trump. This is what the leakers are saying inside the White House. I thought this White House doesn't leak. I don't know. Bondi responded by hearing she's out of a job for an unforgivable offense. Let's read. President to give her more time in the role. Pam Bondi begged for more time in the role. Trump remained firm that her time leading the agency is over. She was unhappy and tried to change his mind, the source said. However, the president told her that she was fired and that the announcement would be made shortly. The announcement would be set for Friday, now is imminent because of the media attention, according to the source. Trump reasoned for the sudden dismissal comes as part of a president believes that Bondi tipped off Eric Swalwell about the FBI's efforts to release investigative documents. Goodness gracious. The FBI was preparing a cache of documents on Swalwell's relationship with Fang Fang, the Chinese spy. Her intervening in those matters, the White House wasn't pleased. She was intervening due to personal friendship with Swalwell. Well, that's not good. Why would you have a personal friendship with Eric Swalwell? That's insane and silly. What the hell is that about? Anyway, the Daily Mail revealed that Trump is preparing to replace her and speaking to several people. Okay. My thoughts on this. And let's just jump right in here, shall we? By the way, the New York Times also. Trump has discussed firing Attorney General Pam Bondi. This is the New York Times take on it. President Trump has not made a final decision, but he floated the idea of replacing Bondi with Lee Zeldin. I'm not going to pay the New York Times to read this article. Trump likely to replace Bondi as Attorney General, but no final decision made it yet. Okay. One final report here. Let's go. This is Dasha Burns. She's with Politico. They are fake news, by the way. But here we go. Person familiar with the situation tells me Pam Bondi will be out as AG imminently. Trump met with the EPA boss Lee Zeldin on Tuesday to discuss last year's California wildfires. Trump also discussed potentially tapping him for the attorney general role. Lee Zeldin is the most likely successor. Nothing against Lee Zeldin. It just seems a strange pick. Okay. Epstein strikes again. Rumors of Bondi's departure are hardly new, but it seems the mood has shifted against her in recent days. The AG has been under pressure since last summer over ill-fated handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files inquiry. Susie Wiles admitting Bondi completely whiffed her response. Trump also has long been frustrated with the DOJ's failure to successfully prosecute his enemies. Readers will recall his infamous Pam message that Trump accidentally posted onto Truth social media last year. Pam. Trump showers Lee Zeldin with praise, and Lee Zeldin works as an attorney in his 20s. Okay. So Jeffrey Epstein. Let's hop on over. The man who won't die, as Donald Trump says. This is the unforgivable sin is not, having a bunch of doofus influencers, hold up the binders, right? Which, by the way, I know a lot of people make fun of the influencers here. They were handed these binders. Nobody got any time to look at what they were. They assumed that this stuff had been vetted and that this was being handled by professionals and adults. And it wasn't. That's a matter of fact. It was a humiliating embarrassment. And it was handed to them by Pam Bondi. That's a matter of fact. These came straight from the DOJ. It showed a level of unseriousness and a level of dismissiveness about the Epstein files, and I think I know why. Because too many people are watching cable TV to get their news and information. And the people on cable TV are the ones in the Epstein files, so they don't cover them. The producers and the big wigs and the heads of these major TV outlets, they cover up the Epstein files. They cover up for Epstein because they loved going to Epstein Island. They loved the services that Epstein provided them, or they did Epstein adjacent things. Go check in on Matt Lauer and his special button in his office to lock his doors for his victims. Epstein had stuff like that. These people are all creeps. Cable news doesn't cover it, and there is a certain wing of the administration that's addicted to cable news. And therefore, they think that the Epstein files weren't real, or that people didn't really care about them because they didn't hear about them much. So they thought they could just do little things and get rid of that. But they didn't understand that there's an entire universe out there called the internet that is really powerful. And there's billions of people on this thing. And those billions of people really care a lot about this Israeli spy, British spy, CIA agent, all of the above, with his special private island and his planes and his money and his presidents, his prime ministers and his princes and all the trafficked women, and they care about this stuff. And so when it was handled so dismissively, remember the unsigned memo released on July 4th? Of all times to release this stupid memo that effectively says Jeffrey Epstein was an upstanding citizen and did nothing wrong. That's what the memo, go back and read the memo. Everybody who was part of that memo deserved to get it, as far as I'm concerned. Because that started the process of this massive headache and unraveling for the administration. What could they have done? Well, you could have just done what President Trump promised to do on the campaign trail, which is release the files. Do you have to release all of them? Should some of this stuff be blocked? Of course. I don't want CP all over, the internet. Of course not. There's nasty stuff in there. But you could release some. You could release the majority of them, and you don't have to release them all at once. Release it in tranches. Go through the declassification, go through the legal loopholes, whatever. But start giving people things. Instead, they gave us a templated letter that said Jeffrey Epstein did nothing wrong, effectively, which is insane. Because now even what we found out about the Epstein files, and we certainly don't have all of them, but what we found out is they did so many wrong things. There's so many people that have lost their jobs over this, and there's so many careers that have been destroyed. People have been arrested in different countries. They should be arrested in this country. But anyway, there's plenty in there that's totally criminal, that's totally evil, that's totally sick, that's totally discrediting, and that has ruined careers. And so why lie? You lied. And I think that's ultimately what's going on here is there was a total misunderstanding of the base, where they live and what they cared about. And the base does care about Jeffrey Epstein and doesn't want to pay taxes to pedophiles. And that's why this is popping off. It's a critical misalignment with the base that won for Trump. We don't want to pay taxes to pedophiles. That's it. Okay? And so the mishandling or the dismissiveness about Jeffrey Epstein was a bad signal. And it didn't have to go that way. It could have easily been thoughtfully handled and could have, frankly, like reestablished a lot of trust, honestly, in federal law enforcement if it had been handled correctly. And what that means is like you literally do put people like Bill Gates and Reid Hoffman in chains. You know, you do a real investigation. You start arresting people, you know, who committed crimes. And you start applying pressure to them. That, I mean, people would have celebrated from the rafters over that. I would have been the first one. Been like, wow, this is really new. And it's really exciting to see this happen with our federal law enforcement. They're going after these evil, connected, powerful people. But instead, it's the exact opposite. And it was treated dismissively. And that's the real sin there. And that's why Pam Bondi, well, that's why she's out. And I have my own sources here, done a couple of phone calls. You know, obviously, Donald Trump does talk very nicely about Pam Bondi. You know, he has talked nicely about Pam Bondi even as of last week, right? She's great. She's fantastic. But reality is an unforgiving mistress. And ladies and gentlemen, this is reality. Trump informed Pam Bondi, Times Attorney General is near its end. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this. It's your boy Benny. Don't lie.